Welcome to Plastic Model Mojo, a podcast dedicated to scale modeling, as well as the news and events around the hobby. Let's join Mike and Kentucky Dave as they strive to be informative, entertaining, and help you keep your modeling mojo alive.
Folks, and Kentucky Dave, it's episode 135 of Plastic Model Mojo. How you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm not doing too bad if the weather around here would not stop trying to kill us. I'm telling you.
I'm ready to see some green, man.
Yeah, I'm green and the sun.
I take brown at this point.
Yeah, well, true enough. The weather in Kentucky this year has been nothing short of horrid.
For Kentucky.
For Kentucky, yes. No, for anywhere else up north, this would be a pretty mild winter. Although I understand we have had like 4 more inches of snow than Minneapolis has had this year, which is just crazy.
That is crazy. It's probably been warmer down here, though.
Yes, when it's not been snowing, it's been single-digit cold. And then when it finally does get warm, it pours huge amounts of rain, and I am just ready for it to be over. So
we have some escapism.
Yes.
Known as our hobbies, and fortunately they're indoors.
Yes. So my model sphere has benefited, but not as much as you would think, simply because of having to deal with all of the weather-related stuff. That driveway isn't going to shovel itself. Those cars aren't going to defrost themselves. But I have made it to the bench and have been making progress on projects, and show season's coming up. So I'm getting prepared for show season. In fact, when we're done recording this, I'll be packing the vehicle up for tomorrow's trip to Columbus. I'm looking forward to what's coming up, man. I am thrilled. I'm jazzed. A little bit panicked about the Moosaroo, but we'll get her done. And so that's my model sphere. How about yours?
We're running down a dream, man. This is all great. I'm trying to find a cadence for this year, man. Here the latter part of first quarter, and we got some stuff we're doing, changing a few things around, and trying some new stuff, and just trying to keep it fresh and all that for everybody. But, we launched the website, and just today I had the scope meeting with our web guys for the phase 2. So hopefully we'll get a quote back from that in a week or so and figure out what we're going to do. Well, that's it in my model sphere other than bench time. We'll get to that. I've been doing pretty good. So
good. Well, I assume you have a modeling fluid.
I do.
What do we have?
I have Pilsner Urquell from the Czech Republic.
Oh, good choice. God, you never go wrong with that one.
Well, I went wrong because I started drinking it too early. I'm going to have to pause at some point and go retrieve another one. But
that's perfectly acceptable.
What about you?
Well, I've got one. It's a repeat. It's Ace Pear Cider.
And your favorite.
One of my 2 favorite beers / ciders, along with Gumball Head. And in the mood for one, had to happen to have it available. So that I know is going to get me through the episode, and we'll talk about it again at the end.
All right. Well, the mailbag's always got something in it, and we might as well get into that.
You got it.
Well, I missed one last week. It came in, should have come in. I wouldn't say it came in under the wire, but it was one of the last emails we got ahead of the last episode, and for some reason I missed it. And it was from Rock Rozak at Detail and Scale, and I've already talked to him about that and told him I'd lead off with this one this episode. And he and Bert are about to rip through the P-51 series.
Yes, and just in time with Armis P-51 series and Edwards P-51 series. It's a good time to be a Mustang modeler.
Well, part 1 of a 4-part anthology, I guess, has just been released. And it's going to be the early Allison engine P-51s and variants. So I guess all the experimentals and prototypes, NA73X, XP-51, P-51, A36A, P-51A, And the Mustangs Mark 1, 1A, and 2, are those the British ones?
Yep.
And then an F6A, which I don't know what is, and an F6B.
That's the F6 is the reconnaissance.
Ah,
version.
okay.
As you know, they digitally publish as well as publish books. And Rock is the guy who really convinced me that getting a tablet and going digital was the way to go for a lot of this stuff. And he was 100% right. Well, he reached out because Google has its own book format, and they had not published in that format up to now. So he kind of used me to beta test, had me download their reader, and he sent me that P-51 Volume 1 book to kind of beta test to make sure everything looked right and to see if there were any glitches and if the conversion to their format, that specific format, worked, and it did. And so I got to read that P-51 book, and wow. Okay. I would like to flatter myself that I knew a fair amount about the P-51. It is amazing how much information was in there, stuff that I had no idea. I learned a ton, and the pictures are fantastic, and the ability to blow them up to get in as close on the detail as you could want. It's absolutely wonderful. So now you will have Kindle versions, you'll have the Google Book versions, the Apple versions. So no matter what book reader you use, you'll be able to access the detail and scale library. And I'm telling you, if you're a P-51 fan, this series is going to be great.
Well, the detail chapter covers all aspects of the aircraft with more than 125 detail photographs. They've used an extensive use of period color photographs. There's a modeler section like in all the detail scale books. And in total, 245 photographs in total, 126 in color, 7 color profiles, and 10 scale drawings. And like you said, Amazon, Apple, Google, and Kobo, which I'm not familiar with.
Yep.
$14.99 via electronic version and $21.99 for print edition. Check it out at www.detailandscale.com. So, Rock, there you go, man. Can't wait for volume 2.
Highly recommended, man.
Well, speaking of new products, how about new old products?
Okay.
Highly desirable new old products.
All right.
The Dixie Flyer, Warren Dickinson, is hitting us up again with some information.
Yes, he did us a solid.
He did. He reached out to Aviology and said, what's up with these no decal availabilities on these Japanese tailcodes? And they informed him that they were indeed going to redo them and reissue them. So currently there are 4 sets each. One of, yellow, red, black, and white tailcodes in both 72nd and 48 scale. So folks, if you want those tailcodes, you better grab them.
And I can tell you that Mike and I's order has been placed.
Aviology Publishing. Now they're up in Canada, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, they are.
Aviology.com, I'm thinking, is the correct web address.
I believe it is.
Now, we'll put it in the show notes because it's a complex spelling.
Yes.
Well, our Texan friend Jake McKee, and past guest of a couple of times, has written in regarding throwing stuff away and the inability to do so, or at least muster up the courage to do it.
I've got that problem, man.
He said for years his mother would send him small and sometimes large boxes of stuff she couldn't stand to throw away. He says he didn't know this stuff still existed, which ended up leading to the don't want to throw it away problem just being shifted to him.
Yeah, I was going to say that. That was a mom's revenge.
I think so. So, he opens these boxes and finds his Boy Scout uniform, his 4th grade glasses, and his kindergarten artwork. He's found that help toss stuff is just to take a picture of it because that's going to last forever.
That's not a bad idea.
And just get rid of it after that.
That is not a bad idea.
So there you go, Dave.
I like that.
You start taking pictures and get one of them 30 cubic yard dumpsters out in your driveway and start chucking it.
Well, I've been chucking it a little bit at a time. So, I'm trying to make sure that every time the garbage goes out on Sunday night, that it's full. So and making slow progress.
We're kind of always doing that around here.
Yeah.
I tell you, one time I made a game out of it. I don't know where I got this tip, but I made this grid with 100 squares on it. And it was get rid of 100 things. Now, they don't have to be significant, right? I mean, they could be crap out of your junk drawer in your kitchen or whatever, but then, that's something.
Right.
But,
broken wooden spoon.
Exactly. Or ballpoint pens with the clips broken off the pocket clip and all that jazz. But anyway, you fill that out as you go and you can see the progress. And when you're all done, you've thrown out 100 things you didn't need.
That's a great idea.
Well, from Finland is next, Dave.
All right.
Our listener, Ville Jurvanen, has written in, and he appreciated the story about the air cap not being tight with Dr. Miller.
Yeah.
And he's wondering if we have any other oh crap stories.
Oh, we got tons of oh crap stories.
We've done one, maybe two. I have to go back through the back catalog. I know early on, our first year, we did a Goofs, Gaffs, and Blunders episode.
Yes. So if you haven't gone back and listened to the early catalog, that would be a reason to go back and actually listen to those early episodes, because Mike and I tell some stories of some serious modeling mistakes and goofs, and some of them are a little bit funny.
And we got some from listeners too.
And some of them are only funny in retrospect.
That's right. Well, he's taking his task here a little bit, Dave.
Okay.
His plan for getting better this year is to learn to spray shiny 2K clear coats on car bodies.
Good. That is a wonderful, wonderful plan for getting better.
And of course, he asks, what's ours?
Okay.
Which I think, if I'm not mistaken, I wish I hadn't deleted that text stream, but I think that is one of our topics for the next...
It is?
The next shop talk.
Yes, it is.
So we're going to take that to heart, and it's something we've talked about offline. On the show too. That had been a mantra for a long time. We've kind of gotten away from it with all the changes in the podcast and stuff, and it's time to get back to that.
Yep, I completely agree.
Well, he reminded me that I'd mentioned shiny paint jobs was not an interest of mine about modeling cars, and suggested making an old rotten car model and using military weathering techniques.
Yep.
That's an idea. Maybe. I don't know.
Yep.
I've kind of got a prejudice against derelicts, though. We won't get into that tonight, but
you could do one of the number of military cars, either German or American, and you could, you don't have to make it derelict, but those were all flat coated.
That kind of be a genre change.
Yeah, that would.
I mean, it's still 35th. Well, I've got an Airfix Monty's Humber in the stash.
Oh, there you go.
I should probably build that.
That checks several boxes.
It does. Well, this one I think is going to segue eventually into some of our other comments, either maybe in the shout outs or possibly in your Facebook messengers. But Andrew Armstrong from Center Point, New York has written in, and he recently renovated his workshop, sent a couple pictures.
Yay. Thank you.
And he said it's worth doing.
Yes.
He actually says his wife pushed him to spend a little money to make things better because he spent so much time down there. It should be nicer, she says.
Yep.
And
my wife has done the same thing.
Well, mine emphatically agreed yes when I asked her if I should get a spray booth.
Yeah. Well, given your wife's degree, that's completely understandable.
And he went out for new skills outside his comfort zone, and he's been working on an old AMT International Scout kit, and he was the new thing there was the wood planks in the trunk bed of that vehicle.
Nice.
And to do it and just do something better than just one color.
There you go.
So there you go, man. Learn something new.
It doesn't have to be something big. It can be something little like that. That's something that if you pull it off, you learn something new. You can be proud of what you accomplished. I mean, and you put another skill in your holster.
Well, finally for me, Dave, on the email side of things is from Duncan Young on behalf of the Hamilton Club, the host of Heritage Con.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we just had those fine folks on.
Yes.
for our model show spotlight, which was Heritage Con, and he wanted to thank us for promoting them over the years, and even not just for the spotlights from the shows coming up, but all the commentary we make about Heritage Con hither and yon all throughout the modeling year. So I guess we bring it up quite a bit because it's such a great thing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've been to a lot of really great model shows, IPMS Nationals, AMPS Nationals, etc., MMSI. So I would like to think that I'm a little hard to impress. I have been absolutely blown away by Heritage Con. Those guys have, not only do they do it great, it seems to get better every year, and that's hard to pull off.
It is. Well, that's all for the email. What's Facebook Messenger looking like?
Facebook Messenger has been very busy. First, there are a bunch of people when they saw on the news that Kentucky was basically becoming one giant swimming pool, DM'd us to check and make sure we were alive, and we were. Luckily, the worst rain was to the south of the Louisville-Lexington line, so the folks in southern and eastern Kentucky got hit worse, unluckily for them. But Mike and I both survived, and we appreciate every one of the listeners who, when they saw that on the news, thought of us and thought to ask.
Well, you go south and west of here, and it just gets flatter, and
yes,
floodplains get wider, and it's a real mess.
And then when you get into eastern Kentucky and Appalachia, it's hills and valleys, and all that rain runs into the valleys.
Yeah.
And
so they got it a couple months ago.
Yeah. Our friend Paul Budzig DM'd in with a link to. First, I want to thank everybody who heeded the call to post photos of their hobby room or hobby bench or hobby workspace. First of all, I am envious of quite a number of your all's spaces. I thought I had it good, but man, some of y'all have some palatial workspaces. Almost all of you all keep it cleaner than mine, which is clearly a problem that I need to address, and I'm working on it. But Paul Budzig, our friend, he sent in a link to that I'll post on the dojo to a hobbyist machinist room video about their setup. And, it's a nice point that you can look not just at modelers' rooms, but at other hobbyist rooms, woodworkers, machinists, watchmakers, etc. By the way, was impressed as heck that Paul Budzig's model room has 2 actual Gerstner boxes. That's some quality. Not the cheap Harbor Freight ripoff that I have. But I'll post that link on our dojo, on the dojo. Next is Ken Schaefer, and Ken, knowing my interests in World War II, the Dutch East Indies, etc., he wants to build one of the KLM DC-3s that was shot up fleeing the Dutch East Indies. And so he wrote in and asked for recommendations for information. And I've got a couple. I'll send him some more, but I've got a couple that I told him I would mention on the air. One, there is a book on the air battle over Broome, Australia, Broome, which has some great information about not only that DC-3, but a bunch of other aircraft that were fleeing the Dutch East Indies. There is a 2-volume set called Bloody Shambles by Shores and Cull, which has a lot of information. I know for a fact that those markings are available in 72nd scale from a company called, of all things, Dutch Decal. And I think they may actually be available from some other companies as well. But Ken, I will send you some additional information because, that is that is an area of interest for both myself and Scott Skippy King. So we have a lot of the info available.
Well, is there some, I wouldn't say popular photography. Is there some well-known photography of this aircraft that spawned the decal sets and stuff?
Yes, and there are actually there's more than one of these aircraft. There were several of them, a number of which fell victim to the Japanese, both DC-3s and DC-2s. So, yeah, there's tons of good photographs, and like I said, I will send you a DM with some more information, but that's I wanted to add, since it's one of my favorite subjects, I wanted to actually answer that DM on the episode. Listener Eddie Turner, and I don't know your geography, I apologize. He asked an interesting question, which I think has been a wheel question before, which was, if you were going to introduce somebody into the hobby for the first time, what kit would you give them to build? And of course, my answer is the Airfix, the Tamiya Zero, the Tamiya 72nd scale Zero. Even though it's not a beginner kit or a snap kit, it is one that I think any beginner could build and get a really, really nice result out of. So what one kit would you recommend to a brand new into the hobby person?
Well, since you're taking the 72nd scale aircraft, I guess I'll take the 35th scale armor line. And I think it probably changes as the years roll out. I think today it would probably be one of the new Tamiya KVs. I think that'd probably be a good place to go.
Yeah. Yeah. One color, really a beast looking of a tank. So you get something that looks like a tank.
And the parts count's reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah. That's unfortunately the rising part count part of this hobby sometimes can be a bit much.
That's for sure.
Yeah. Listener Scott Daniel wrote in, we had talked about what are your plans for 2025. So he wrote in and told us that two of the things he planned to do, number one was build the Airfix B Mark II bomber kit in 72nd scale. And then he also planned to build the Arma aircraft carrier deck. And Arma on its blog actually has where you can take their aircraft carrier deck and they suggest a way to cut it and build it to kind of make a multi-level effect, like an elevator going down or part of an elevator. And so he said he wanted to attempt that. And I thought those were both great projects. From what I hear, the Airfix Lank builds up really well. I recommended he take a look at the Bases by Bill carrier decks if he just wants a carrier deck, but he wants to do that particular project. And you know what? That is a really good thing for modelers. If you draw inspiration, if you see some project that somebody does that you find very inspiring and say, hey, I want to try that, don't be afraid to go do that. You're not only is imitation the sincerest form of flattery, but there's nothing wrong with doing a project that somebody else did and using their learning to assist in your learning. Let's see. You mentioned already, but I also want to extend my thanks to Warren Dickinson for his heads up on those aviology decals, because we've kind of been waiting for a number of years for those to get reissued. So thanks, Warren. I appreciate it. That's all I've got from the DM side.
Well, folks, we appreciate all the emails and all the direct messages, so keep it coming. We love this segment. If you want to send an email, you can do it by sending it to plasticmodelmojo@gmail.com, or you can send us a direct message via the Facebook Messenger system. And look forward to hearing from you, folks. And again, if you do, we'd appreciate if you give us your geography, city and state, or your country and the city you're in. Not too much information, but just enough to know what kind of reach we're getting and where folks are from. We like that. Add that little detail to the commentary of this segment. So please, if you can remember that, we appreciate it.
Thank you. If you would, when you're done listening to this episode, if you would rate the podcast on whatever podcast listening app you are using, we would appreciate it. Also, if you would tell a modeling friend who doesn't listen to the podcast about the podcast, help them on their phone or other device download an app for listening to podcasts and help them subscribe. The best way for us to continue to grow, and we do continue to grow, is people who are current listeners recommending us to their friends. So please do so.
Well, I'll also add that it's a lot easier now with the website for folks to listen off the website. So
yeah,
www.plasticmodelmojo.com. You can find every episode we've ever dropped on the website.
Yep. If you've got a computer in your model room, all you got to do is you don't even have to pull out your phone or anything. You can listen directly on your computer. Just go to the website.
That's right. Or you got a smart TV with a browser, you can do it there too.
That too.
Once you've done all that and you want some more podcast action, you can go to modelpodcast.com. That's modelpodcastplural.com. It's a consortium website set up with the help of Stuart Clark from the Scale Model Podcast up in Canada. And Stu has done a great job just keeping all the banner links for all the other podcasts in the model sphere aggregated. So it's a one-stop shop. You can go there and see what else is available, subscribe to all of them, listen to all of them. And we really encourage that. In addition, we've also got a lot of friends who are creators out in the model sphere, blogs and YouTube friends. We've got Mr. Jeff Groves, the Inch High Guy's got a great 70-second scale blog, and he just started some huge batch build.
Yes.
What was it? Is it
the Oscars, the ARMA Oscars?
Oh, yeah. He's got a bunch of ARMA Oscars.
Yes.
Stephen Lee, Sprue Pie with Frets, great long and short form blog. Also a lot of 70-second scale content who we're going to actually get to see on our own turf next month.
Yes, we are. He's coming to Louisville, and we are going to show him Kentucky hospitality.
All right. Evan McCallum, Panzermeister 36. He just finished a nice little BT2. I'm really excited to see a video on his dust effects because that is something that's always eluded me, and I think he did a bang-up job on that model.
Did he? He knocked that one out as a quickie and just did an amazing job on it.
So looking forward to that. Chris Wallace, model airplane maker. He's got a fun YouTube channel and blog and some cool keychains, but mine broke, Chris. I'm going to get another one, man. I don't know what happened there.
Mine's fine, Chris.
I must have got a defective one. Not your fault, Chris. I'm sure I can probably tell where those were made.
Yes, but I'll have you know that I use mine every day, Chris, and it's holding up beautifully.
All
so
right. Maybe
that might be operator error.
Might be operator error for keychain. That's pretty sad.
Yes.
Hopefully not. And finally, we've mentioned him already, Paul Budzik, Scale Model Workshop over on Patreon, and he's dropped a couple pretty recently, one on primer painting with spray guns and one on the A20.
Yep.
I'm glad to see that one moving forward. Just some great stuff, and always learn something from Paul's videos. So
oh, absolutely.
You will too.
Yes. If you are a listener and you are not a member of IPMS USA, IPMS Canada, or your national IPMS chapter, whatever country you're in, please consider joining your national IPMS chapter. It's a modeling organization run by a group of volunteers who give up some of their time to make your modeling experience better. Also, if you are an armor modeler or post-1900s figure modeler, the Armor Modeling and Preservation Society, AMPS, is a great group of guys who are super talented and devoted to the art of modeling armor-related subjects. So go take a look at them as well.
All right, Dave, let's hear from Model Paint Solutions.
It sounds like a good idea.
Plastic Model Mojo is brought to you by Model Paint Solutions, your source for Harder and Steenbeck airbrushes, David Union power tools, and laboratory-grade mixing, measuring, and storage tools for use with all your model paints, be they acrylic, enamels, or lacquers. Check them out at www.modelpaintsolutions.com.
Well, Dave, our special segment tonight is a little different. It's something kind of in the vein of, say, the high school teacher or Chris Collins.
Yes.
That we did back in episode 105. Tonight we got our friend Mark Copeland, who we know through our modeling travels and show attendance and through Steve Hustad, or Steve through Mark, actually.
Right.
Mark is the Director of Educational Travel for the National Museum of the Mighty Eight Air Force, which is a really cool job he's found himself in the last 18 months, couple of years, I think.
He did something right for karma to come back that hard on him.
Well, as folks will hear in this conversation, he's lived the 8th Air Force historian life for a long time, and all that hobby interest and personal interest has really paid off for him. It was adjacent to his other career, sort of.
Yeah.
He was in the airline industry. But anyway, I think folks are going to find this interesting, and maybe some folks will be inspired to take one of these trips to the 8th Air Force Museum. So let's have a listen. Well, Dave, tonight we've got a great friend of the podcast over the last few years, Mr. Mark Copeland. How you doing tonight, Mark?
I'm terrific. Thanks for having me on here, and hello to everybody from chilly Minnesota.
Well, Mark is from chilly Minnesota, and I guess the first thing you did for the podcast, Mark, was get us introduced to Steve Hustad.
Oh, I'm really sorry. I did that. Please forgive me.
No.
No.
The biggest favor you could possibly have done us.
Well, I couldn't agree more, seriously.
Well, I didn't know him at all, and Dave was too deep down the idol worship to even approach him about coming on the show. So,
hey, I talked to him. I said like 5 words to him in 2006.
Yeah, nice model. How'd you do that?
No, I really like your model.
Well, we're not here to talk about Steve. We'll have him on, I'm sure, again.
I got to say that he was the one who introduced me to the podcast, and I can say from both of us and probably the whole Plastic Model Mojo community, what a great job you guys do, and what you've done to kind of unite the scale modeling community throughout the world. And you really just made it. Plastic Model Mojo is kind of like a really dependable friend that I see every 2 weeks, and it's always a joy to listen to you guys.
Well, we'll wrap it up right there. Thanks for being here.
The check is in the mail.
No, Steve, like I said, Steve introduced me to you guys, and I've been a faithful listener pretty much ever since you started the thing up.
Well, great.
Well, cool. We want to start this off you mentioned the scale modeling community. You're in their club up there in the Twin City areas. Tell us a little bit about your model clubbing.
Sure. Well, I joined the Twin City Aero Historians, a IPMS club that was formed in December of 1966. I joined it in 1977. My first meeting, my dad had to drive me to the meeting because I didn't have my driver's license, and that was a long time ago. But it's a group of gentlemen. You know, we not only do modeling, but we also are aviation history enthusiasts. There's several authors, published authors, writers, photographers, anybody that has a love of historic aviation. And we've expanded it really. We weren't a snobby airplane club. We allow everything into it as an IPMS organization. But there's a group of probably, I think we're around 75 members, I think, someplace in there. We meet every second Saturday of the month at a place called South St. Paul Airport. Fleming Field is probably better known. And we meet there 1:00 on the second Saturday, like I mentioned. And it's just a great bunch of guys. I think you had mentioned something, Dave. I kind of went, yeah, I understand that. These gentlemen, there's a lot of them that are truly my best friends in the world. If I had to really depend on someone or trust someone, it's going to be one of my modeling buddies, and it's just a great club. And Steve Hustad, early as you mentioned, is the vice president, and then they were hard up, and I've been the president for the last 4 years, and very proud to serve.
So, in other words, the meeting where they held the election, you missed that meeting. And so
Exactly.
Because that's how it works at almost every club.
That's right. I was on tour at the time over in England, and I came back and they elected me again.
Now, you're a man after my own heart in that you build 72nd scale aircraft models.
You're correct. Yeah.
Mostly World War II?
Predominantly, Dave. Yeah. I guess I'd really kind of classify myself from 1914 to 1945. And I kind of draw the line there. They stopped making airplanes as far as I'm concerned after 1945. So no, I'm teasing.
Once those jet things started flying, yeah. If it doesn't spray oil and have a prop out the front, it's not an airplane, right?
Well, aren't we living in just an incredible time in modeling right now? It's just raining new releases. It's just incredible.
It is, especially for those of us in 70. It's true in all scales, but for those of us in 72nd scale right now, this is the golden time.
You can't keep up.
Yeah, which means we have to build faster. And Steve wanted me to remind you that you need to build faster.
Oh, don't we all?
He tells me that every day too. So.
Right.
Well, if you start into the club in 66.
Oh yeah, the club started in 66, and I came along 10 years after. I was only 6 years old in 1966. However, the following year at 7 is when I began modeling.
Okay, that's about when I started getting introduced to it.
Yeah,
it was about 7 as well.
That's my dad took me to Hardware Hank on 98th and Nicollet in Bloomington, Minnesota, and I picked up a powder blue box 4-star monogram 148 scale A6 M50, and we sat down and we built it together. And I always tease him that when he comes over and sees my collection and my models and this and that, I always tease him, it's all your fault. You're the one who started it.
Now, let me ask you, Steve and I were actually discussing this. We both have the first model we remember building. Mm-hmm. We've gone out and located it and bought it again so that you have it for nostalgia purposes. Have you gone out and located
Absolutely.
That first model? And you've got it?
Of course.
Okay, do me a favor when we're done recording.
It's probably packed up.
Go on the Dojo. Yeah. Oh, that's true. That's right. It's probably packed up. If it isn't,
in the middle of a move right now. Yes.
Okay. Well, when you get access to it, please post a picture of it on the Dojo.
I sure will. I've got some other, kind of models that had something to do in your life.
Yeah.
The Revell 172nd scale B-17 Peggy D-43. And the Lindbergh B-17 that had the clear globe stand that used to sit on my dresser. And then I think I was in that time period, build a model and then get some white thumbtacks and some monofilament fish line. And then my ceiling was covered with all my models. And I would stare every night and just look up and my favorite one was right above my bed. And that was the Revell 172nd scale B-17, and I know that we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I used to sit there and dream about what it would be like to be on one of those and be involved with Eight Airforce, and now I work as the Director of Educational Travel for the National Museum of the Mighty Eight Airforce in Savannah, so dreams do come true.
Yep.
We wanted to establish the modeling connection up front just so everybody out there listening would know you were, in fact, one of us, but your current employment is why we wanted to have you on to talk about some of this
thanks,
stuff.
Guys. That's nice of you.
Now, you're in Minnesota, but the museum itself is located in Savannah, Georgia.
Yeah, actually, Pooler.
How did you get hooked up with them? How did you end up doing work for them?
It's a really good question. Well, my interest in the Eighth Air Force started way back, and I spent about 32 and a half years in the airline industry working for various regional partners with Northwest and Delta Airlines. So I had the opportunity at my feet to, like you, Dave, to travel. And I really took advantage of that. And I started going to England back when I first became an airline employee. In fact, the next tour that I take out in May, that's going to be number 56. That's
Oh,
my
wow.
56th time to England. Yeah. So I went up and around in East Anglia and made a lot of great friends. And the person that really influenced my interest in the Eighth Air Force came actually not from meeting him in person. It was through his book. And I'm sure all the listeners will be very familiar with the author, Roger Freeman, and the book, The Mighty Eighth, and then countless books after that. I think Roger wrote roughly 60 titles on the Eighth Air Force and World War II aviation history. And I became active in the Eighth Air Force Historical Society here in Minnesota. And then I went to the national reunions and I became really involved with it then. And then like I said, I had the opportunity to travel. So I not only went to England, but I started going to several bomb group and fighter group reunions and getting to know these gentlemen and really making some great connections and really, touching history. So in anticipation of, what they felt was going to be a rise, probably meteoric rise in the interest in the Eighth Air Force history, the museum reached out to me back in about 2021, and they said, we would really like to do something in regards to bringing educational travel tours to England and giving people the opportunity to experience this thing. And the reason why is that we're going to be hopefully a historical tsunami is going to be kind of hitting the museum because of the Apple TV miniseries Masters of the Air. So they reached out and they said, can you help us build a dream trip? And I kind of said, okay, what do you want to do? And they said, that's up to you. So I sat down and I kind of made two lists. I made a list of, well, this is just a phone call. This is an email. This is, you got to do this. You have to do this. And then I made another list of the things that I'd really like to do. I really gave it a lot of thought in terms of the things that really would immerse a tour participant into the history of the Eighth Air Force. And I made a list and I called it, these are the things I'd really like to do, but there's probably no way that we're going to get a chance to do them, but I'm going to try anyway list. And so I kind of went to work on that. So I put this whole thing together. I did research on transportation, hotel properties, restaurants, a tour itinerary, and kind of the logics of that, and then reached out to several friends that I had over in England. I took a 68-page prospectus down to the museum, and I gave it to the folks that were involved on the project, and said, "This is what I would do." And so I was asked to run a tour, kind of a preseason game, if you will, or a test tour. And that was in the fall of 2022. And I took about 25 people over and we did the tour. And it was designed not to be perfect, but we got a lot of great feedback, mostly positive, or, things in terms of, did we stay too long in this place, or how was the food here? Did you like the hotels, and blah, 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 blah. And we took all that and really honed it in, and we made the tour. And so at that time, they gave me the opportunity to join the team in Savannah. At the time, I had a full-time job and working as a OCC flight duty director in the airline industry. And they threw that in front of me, and I just said I'd like to stay in Minnesota if I could. And they allowed me to do that. And yeah, they hired me in February of 2023.
Was your first tour limited to England only?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes. Last year we expanded it, and we took a trip over to Normandy. And once again, we did some things that were really kind of off the beaten path, and got a chance to really explore, that beautiful portion of France, and of course the rich history that's there.
Well, what are some of the highlights for the England tours?
I can get you to Hannet's in London really easy.
Yeah, we may have to do that sometime, Mark.
We fly our folks into Heathrow. You have a private car that meets you. I meet you at Heathrow, and then a private car takes you out to the hotel. And then really to start off the tour, this is one of the things that I never thought we would be able to do, but I got us into a place called Wickham Abbey. And Wickham Abbey during World War II was the headquarters for 8th Air Force and also RAF Bomber Command. They were co-located at this property west of London. And this is where everything happened with the 8th Air Force. All the target planning, all the bomb assessments, everything was done, or in terms of, everything was signed off and put into place at that very historic place. Well, now it's a very, very exclusive, very expensive private girls' school. But I got us into the Abbey, and you actually get a chance to walk into the very office where Ira Aker and Jimmy Doodle ran the Eighth Air Force. It's an incredible feeling. And then one of the stops that we do along the way, it's kind of where Eighth Air Force Fighter Command started. Right now, it's a British military base that also is very hard to get onto, and we take our folks to Debden. And I think our listeners will recognize that it was the home of the 4th Fighter Group. And we actually get a chance to go on the base. We get a chance to do a short tour. It's like I said, an active Army base, but they allow us to actually go out onto the wartime runways. And our motor coach literally drives down the runways where once Spitfires, P-47s, and P-51s of the famous 4th Fighter Group flew. And you're there. And then I'll take you to various spots along the way where, this is where this pilot's aircraft was, or this is where this happened, and so forth and so on. Throughout the tour, we do 5 B-17 bases. We do Framlingham, which is the home of the 390th, the 100th at Thorpe Abbotts. We do the 389th at Hethel, and we also do the 453rd at Old Buckingham, where Jimmy Stewart flew. And then we take you over to Bottisham, where the 361st Fighter Group was at, and then we go into Cambridge. We have a special wreath-laying ceremony just for our group at Mattingly Cemetery, where the graves of 3,811 servicemen and women rest today. And then we go to Basingbourne, which is also a tough place to get onto. That was for the 91st Bomb Group, the Memphis Belle, and that the first group to make it over, and also a group where the highest number of losses were obtained in the 8th. We go to Duxford, and then we go into London. We stay at a very posh hotel in central London, and we do things along the lines of, we go to the Churchill War Rooms. Well, that's fine. We can go down and take the 28-pound tour, but we actually make it special for our guests, and we, through some connections and a dear friend that works or is now retired there, we're allowed to go in, and they do a behind-the-glass tour. So we actually go inside the cabinet room, and you literally stand right at Winston Churchill's very chair that he sat in during World War II. It's an incredible experience. And then to finish it off, we go to St. Paul's Cathedral, and most of the time it works out, but we made great friends there. And in St. Paul's Cathedral, behind the high altar, is the American Chapel. It was dedicated by then sitting Vice President Nixon and Queen Elizabeth II in 1958. But even more so, that's where the American Roll of Honor is kept. And the American Roll of Honor, for those who don't know, is this enormous book that was commissioned and was presented to the cathedral by General Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1946. It contains all the names of the American war dead that were killed in action in defense of Britain. So it's contained in this big case with the glass top, and we've made very good friends with the vergers and the vicars there, and they understand what it really means to our tour participants and the significance of it. Every day since it was commissioned and put out in 1958, one of the vergers comes out, unlocks the glass top, and they turn a page. And what they do is they wait for our group to show up. And this last tour, they gave us the true honor of each of our tour participants got a chance to turn the page in the American Roll of Honor, and it kind of almost chokes me up now just thinking about it, because it was such a remarkable experience. And you just have to leave people with that feeling like they've walked the airfields and the museums and seen all this stuff, but looking at that book and all those names, it really brings it home to what the cost was for our freedom. And in honor of the 26,000 8th Air Force veterans and the 28,000 prisoners of war, the 26,000 that never came home. And it's quite a remarkable feeling. So that's a long answer.
That's all right. That's all right. Now, I assume that most of these folks who go on the tour are either very, very elderly, actual previous members of the 8th Air Force or the U.S. military during World War II, or their children. I would assume that that's the core group of people who would be interested in those types of things.
All our participants are interested in history and also having a good time. We live very, very well in 4- and 5-star hotels. We eat and drink very well. You are definitely pampered. But you're right. Most of the folks are or not most of the folks, but a good majority of the people had a father, maybe a grandfather, in some cases a great grandfather, an uncle, a cousin, etc. Or they knew their old band teacher in school was a B-17 ball turret gunner, or this guy in the church choir that he knew was a P-51 pilot. We have all kinds of different stories. And what I can say is we really try our very, very best. And so far we've succeeded on every occasion. At the peak of the 8th Air Force in its full strength, there were 40 heavy bombardment groups in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Air Division, 40 of them. 15 fighter groups, 2 reconnaissance groups, and each of them had their own individual airfield. Well, even though the tour is, very extensive, we cover a lot of ground and see a lot of things, it's impossible. We can't get to every air base. But on our last tour, I had a woman whose father was a pilot at Sudbury in the 486 Bomb Group. Another woman whose father was a co-pilot in the 452nd Bomb Group at Deetham Green, and also was a POW, and a gentleman whose father was a tail gunner in the 44th Bomb Group at Shipton. And those are not stops on our regular tour, but we have latitude and some time, to give some free time and so forth. And I've got a lot of very dear, close friends, and I managed to make it work out to where each one of those aforementioned folks, I had a friend, or I've even rented a car myself and driven folks out so they can go out and see where their dad served. I mean, that's such a neat experience for them and for me, frankly, that you can make that happen. So that's one of the things I really am very proud of, is that we'll try and personalize it for one of our tour participants who had a relative and have a desire to go see that former air base.
I know some former U.S. World War II bases are now currently either U.S. bases or they're British bases.
Yep.
But aren't the vast majority of them decommissioned?
Yes,
simply...
they are. Every air base has something.
Okay.
I've gone to. I just spoke to a gentleman the day before yesterday whose father flew at a place called Kim Bolton in the 379th Bomb Group, 1st Air Division. Very, very famous group. And I've been out to the air base a number of times, and virtually there's virtually nothing there, but there's a memorial, and it's a beautiful memorial. And you know what? Sometimes you don't need to see something, but you can just feel the history when you're standing on that hallowed ground. And but we kind of take folks to places where there is something to see. Where aforementioned Masters of the Air featured the 100th Bomb Group. Well, the 100th Bomb Group has the 100th Memorial Museum at the base, and it's housed in the former control tower, restored, and it's a fantastic museum. And all those aforementioned bases, all of them have some sort of a museum. But yeah, most of them, there's either something along that line. They have a physical museum there, or there might not be a thing, but usually there's a piece of granite and to commemorate what happened during that time. And so, but yeah, and a lot of them are occupied. I can say Debden, Basingbourne, Molesworth. There's a few other over and more towards Norwich that are active military bases, and yeah, they're tough to get on, but where there's a will, there's a way.
Well, spring and summer are coming. I imagine that's your peak season.
Yeah, we've got a tour in May, actually a special tour too, because we've made very good friends at the Cambridge American Cemetery at Mattingly, and I've jigged the itinerary around, and we are going to have VIP seating on Memorial Day for their annual Memorial Day commemoration. And believe me, the Cambridge American Cemetery does it right. it's a very emotional ceremony, and I know our tour participants are going to really enjoy that. And then we've got a couple of other tours coming up in October. One that's a shorter tour of the 8th Air Force. You basically get a chance to do everything, but we combine it back to back with another offering going over to Normandy. And we call this one the Easy 8. That's the 9th through the 16th of October. And then we take a break in the middle of it. And if you wanted to do the entire tour and really, really do it right, you'd have a day to yourself. And then the following day, we begin a tour to go to Normandy. But we actually started in England. And what we got a chance to do is we take the folks down to Southwick House in Portsmouth. And that is the place where Eisenhower did the final planning stages of the Normandy invasion. And we go into the actual manor house where they have the map room, and they have the original floor-to-ceiling map that was used in 1944 to plan the invasion. And we have a great lecture. That's one thing we do on our tours is I bring in a lot of really good guest lecturers or guest historians, very, very knowledgeable about the subject. And then following that, we go into this place that was the room where the final decisions were made in regards to the invasion. Wing Commander Stagg, the chief meteorologist, gave the weather report to Eisenhower and his staff and said, it's not perfect. The seas are going to be rough, but this is about your best opportunity that you're going to have until the latter portion of June. And it was said that Eisenhower cleared the room. He just had his immediate staff in this area. He got up, he looked out of the back window of Southwick House. He stood there for a minute, and he turned around and he said, "Gentlemen, let's go." And that's the room where the decision was made. And we have a champagne reception to start off our tour. And then we head over and we actually do the Channel, which is quite really remarkable. And we put our bus on a train, and we start moving. And about 20 minutes later, we're in France, and we go to all 5 beaches. Once again, we like champagne for some reason. We have a champagne reception at Brecourt Manor, and for those who know 506 Easy and Band of Brothers, if I could refer to the miniseries, the second episode, Day of Days, we parachute into Normandy with Dick Winters. And later in the episode, he's assigned to take out these German guns that are pounding Utah Beach. And he basically did this ad hoc, make it up as you go assault. And we actually go and meet Charles Duvalier, the owner of Brecourt Manor, and he invites us into his chateau area. And then he explains, kind of what happened there. We go to all the beaches, like I said, and do some things that we've got a really good French tour guide that grew up in Normandy by the name of Dominique Francois. He's written about 7 or 8 titles on the Normandy campaign. And he's our guide and also an excellent translator because my French isn't so much.
So now how many people are on a normal tour?
We'll go small, about anywhere from around 8 to 12 up to last year I took 32 to France.
Gotcha.
For the modeling community that I also should add, we have a Mighty 8th tour that starts on the 27th of October, goes for 11 days, and it ends on Thursday, November the 6th. And funny enough, I don't know how this happened. It's such a coincidence. The following day, I'll show you how to get up to Telford. And the next 2 days is modeling heaven at the largest scale model show in the world. And I'll help you out and help you get up there because that's where I'm going. And Telford's the greatest thing in the world. I mean, it's once you go over there, short of swimming, I'll never miss one. It's incredible.
Well, this new job of yours and these tours is kind of the pinnacle of a long history that you've had with the 8th Air Force. I know you sent a little resume. We knew what you're up to before we started. We've talked to you a lot about this on our joint traveling modeling adventures, but I'm looking at this thing, Mark, and since about 1996, you seem to have been the lowly PX manager for the 8th Air Force Historical Society, all the way up to national president.
Yeah. So I've had a really great life.
So you've been doing that for 20 years, looks like.
Oh, easy. Yeah.
Easy. Well, on the record with the Historical Society, I'm sure you've been doing it longer than that. on your own. What honed you in and got you interested in the 8th Air Force in particular?
They gave us everything. They gave us our freedom, and what their courage and endeavor. To me, they saved the world. And the gentlemen that I've had the pleasure of knowing in the past, they've taught me a lot of things about love of country, about integrity, about respect and kindness, and also about the self fortitude that it took to do what they did. And I guess what really, like I said earlier, really spawned it on was my great friendship with Roger Freeman. And we were close enough to where in 2005, in October of 2005, he passed away of cancer, and I was given the privilege to come across by the request of his family, and I gave his eulogy. And that was a pretty important thing in my life, and I think about him every day. And I guess to me, that just the fact that when you can go out and, like I said, you had the luxury of travel, and you got a chance to meet these extraordinary gentlemen, and that just really, really kept the whole thing going. And I just wanted more. And I guess it was just a way that I could give back for what they gave me and all the people in the free world. They gave us, like I said, our liberty and our freedom, and whatever I could do to contribute back will never ever pay the debt that we all owe them for what they did some 80 years ago.
Now, given your long association with the society and with the 8th Air Force and with the museum, I'm sure you've met many, many veterans.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I know we could spend hours and hours talking, but pick out a couple of memorable individuals. Tell a couple stories about a couple of these amazing men.
Oh boy, yeah, you're right. We could go for hours. Like I said, I've had a incredibly blessed life on getting a chance to meet some of these guys. I know that we have a shared love of August 1st, 1943, and the tidal wave mission at Ploiest. And yep. I got a chance to meet several veterans from that campaign. I know that you had met Phil Ardrey down
yep.
in your neck of the woods. I knew old Phil. And then I would do, let me think, relating to Ploiest, where do I start? Oh, I know. Yeah, just because you could do it, I'd make arrangements with his secretary, and General Ramsey Potts, who was part of the contingent of leading the 93rd Bomb Group on August 1st. He went on, to go into the 389th Bomb Group, the 453rd, and he was great friends with Jimmy Stewart, and he went all the way up into 2nd Air Division and into command. Very, very, really, really brilliant pilot, and also a great leader. Well, after the war, he studied law and actually had a law practice in Washington, D.C. And I would jump on a early flight to Reagan and make arrangements with his secretary. And I did this probably about 4 or 5 times through the years. And I would just jump on a jet and fly to Reagan. And of course, as an airline employee, you know what I paid.
Right.
And then got out to grab the metro and head uptown. And I'd go to his office and I'd meet General Potts, and we would just have lunch and talk for about an hour and a half or so. And I'd say, thank you very much. And I'd take the metro back, jump on a flight, and fly back home. And the whole day probably cost $25-$30.
Yeah.
But I got a chance to meet, one of those guys from Ploiest. And then there's a dear friend of mine out in South Dakota by the name of Blaine Duxbury. If there's anybody that really, really knows the aircraft of Ploiest, it's Blaine. And we just decided, since nobody was going to recognize it or do anything, you have to remember, what is the single one-day military action, or most decorated military action in our country's history? No, it wasn't at Valley Forge or Gettysburg or anything like that. It was August 1st, 1943. There were 5 Medal of Honor winners, as you know, that participated in that raid, 3 that were awarded posthumously. So we just decided that somebody had to do something, and I knew I had connections, and Blaine had connections, and just the two of us, we organized a 70th anniversary commemoration of the Ploiest raid, and we did it in Dayton, Ohio. And of course, we went to the National Museum of the not mighty Air Force of
Right.
the U.S. Air Force, where they have the only real surviving B-24D.
Yep.
We thought it would be worthy if we could maybe get like 4 or 5 guys, because they were in their late 80s or just creeping into their 90s. And we actually managed to get 12. We had 12 Ploesti vets, including Mary Jurstead Jacobs, who was the
Wow.
only sibling of John Jurstead of the 93rd Bomb Group, who was one of the Medal of Honor winners that was awarded posthumously. And that was the first time that she ever came to honor her brother. And that weekend was just unbelievable. Just the history, and we conducted a lot of symposiums and things along that line, and really kind of immersed and, of course, commemorated August 1st, the 70th anniversary of that raid. Another one, I will still do a lot of consulting work for the Military Gallery over in England, who publishes the late Robert Taylor, Richard Taylor, the late Gerald Colson, Anthony Saunders, and a host of other artists. And I used to consult in regards to being their chief kind of history guy, if you will. So as an example, Robert Taylor was going to do an Eighth Air Force piece, and he wanted to do a particular subject, in particular of a certain mission, or he wanted to feature a certain aircraft. So I would give him information, and as a modeler, you kind of knew what this airplane looked like at this particular time, and you made sure that the accuracy was very pertinent. And then in turn, what I would get a chance to do is they didn't remit me or pay me basically in money, but I got a very nice aviation art collection. And then what I also did was I went over several times to England for these gallery events, and my job would be to stay at the hotel with the veterans. And all of a sudden, I was sitting there with 5 of the surviving Dam Buster crewmen and 6 Battle of Britain pilots, and making sure that they were on time and that they were driven. And I got a chance to meet these incredible men, not only the RAF guys, Luftwaffe veterans, et cetera, through the connections. And then I also got a chance to bring over some Americans to these different events, and that was some great memories. So yeah. And then probably of any vet that I was probably the closest to was Colonel Don Blakesley. Colonel Blakesley and I were very close until he passed in around, I think, 2008 is when he left us. But we were great friends, and I spent many a time down at his place near Homestead Air Force Base, south of Miami. And for those who don't know, Colonel Blakesley was the commander of the 4th Fighter Group and started flying with the Royal Canadian Air Force, then went to the Eagle Squadron, and then flew with the 4th. And in all, I think he flew, just what I can figure out, just over 1,300 hours of combat time, which has never been done by another American pilot. And Colonel Dion and I were good buds.
Well, that they didn't call it the Blakesley Waffle for nothing.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, that's got to be wonderful. Of course, and now, there are fewer and fewer of them remaining,
Yes.
given that most of these guys who are still around are pretty 100-year-old or
Yes.
pretty darn close.
I went on one of our tours in 2023. We did an 80th anniversary of the Black Week period of the 8th Air Force, October 8th through the 14th of 1943, when the 8th Air Force lost 138 heavy bombers in that 6-day period. And I had the chance, I got a call, many of your listeners might know the name of John Lucky Luckadoo from the 100th Bomb Group. And John was 101, and he called me up and said, I want you to save a spot for me, for my daughter, and my son-in-law, and we want to go on your Black Week tour in October. And I kind of sat there for a second, and I said, what could go wrong with that? But by golly, we did it. And for 12 days, I took a 101-year-old gentleman, and he got a chance to go back to Thorpe Abbotts and fulfill a lifelong dream to show his daughter where he served during World War II. And that was just a remarkable experience. And Lucky will be 103 on March the 6th. Yeah, March 16th.
Wow. That has to be, for having lived through that awful week, that has to be kind of real mixed emotions to go back 80, 70, 80 years later, whatever it was, and to visit those places. I mean,
yeah,
I can't imagine.
Really something. And we really kept his visit kind of private. We didn't advertise it on social media. And I got to recommend in that regards to John Luckadoo. If your listeners really want to take a really good historical ride in 2020 during the pandemic lockdown, John and an excellent writer by the name of Kevin Maurer wrote the story of his World War II exploits, and it's a book called Damn Lucky.
Yes,
and
it's great.
It's just unbelievable. And he tells a story about his time in the 100th Bomb Group, and he's very truthful. And I remember John and I we went up on top of the tower, and I mean, he scampered up the stairs like he was on fire. And we were coming down, and I said, let's just do this right. And I had one of the docents kind of on the front in case he went forward, and I was in back of him in case he went backwards. And we walked down, and all of a sudden he stood on the tower, and he stood at the corner, just staring out at the field. And I knew exactly what was going on. And all of a sudden, he was back in 1943.
Oh yeah.
And he just stood there, and I didn't say anything, but I managed to take my phone and I took some pictures, and I'll post that on the dojo of
yes.
the last 100th Bomb Group veterans standing on the control tower at Thorpe Abbotts, because there's only 4 of them left. That's it. There's only 4 100th Bomb Group veterans left living right now, and I was there, to see it, and that was just something. And I didn't say anything to him or whatever, and he just kind of turned around, and I said, "You're right, John," and he goes, "Yep," and just we walked off, and that was it. But yeah, that was a remarkable honor.
Yeah, that's got to be amazing. So, how many tours do you have coming up this year?
We've got one planned in May, and then we have, as I mentioned, the long tour, which is 16 days, going to England and to Normandy. And then we can split it in half, and you can do the front portion of which is a shortened Eight Airforce tour, and then the D-Day tour is after that. The whole tour is 16 days in total, and then we have a complete separate day tour, which is starting on the 11th. I'm sorry, try to do that again. It starts on October 27th, and then goes to November 6th. That's an 11-day tour, and then after that, I'm going to Telford. And anybody that wants to come along, please do. And then I'm also developing, kind of interestingly enough, I'm developing a tour that nobody's ever done. Aforementioned, there were 28,000 Eighth Air Force prisoners of war during World War II. What I'm developing right now is a trip to go to Berlin. Then the group would go from Berlin up to Rostock, and we would visit the site where Stalag Luft 1 was at. The following day, we would go out to Peenemünde, where the vengeance weapons were developed by the Germans. And then we'll go back to Berlin and kind of do all the sites in and around Berlin, not only World War II, but also Cold War, the Wall, Checkpoint Charlie, etc. And then we'll take a drive off, and we're going to go out to Colditz Castle.
Oh, wow.
And then also the following day, we're going to drive over to Zagan in Poland and visit Stalag Luft 3. Of course, that's the place where the Great Escape happened. And then from there, we're going to go down to Dresden and spend a couple days in Dresden, and then finish off the tour in Nuremberg, and we'll see the sights of Nuremberg. And the final thing that I want to put together is visiting the Hall of Justice, where the Nuremberg war trials were held. So that'll be a really remarkable trip. That's going to be in the spring, and then I have another German trip that's going to be in the fall of 2026.
Okay, so you've already started. You've got all of 2025 planned, and you're actually starting working on 2026
and 27. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, and all this information can be found on our website if you don't mind me doing a shameless plug.
No, I was just about to ask, actually.
Just about to ask
So
you.
I
to do
will.
that.
So if our listeners would like to know just how to get on one of these tours, or
well, I can tell you just how to do that. No, I'll now I have to send you guys a check in the mail.
Yeah. Right.
No, it's actually on our website. It's on www.mighty8th.org, and then you just go to the educational travel tab. It tells you all the details, a more detailed itinerary, the hotel properties that we have, what we kind of do loosely on a day-by-day basis. And, we understand that, you and I or anybody as far as that might be interested in this, it'd be fun to take your spouse. And I can say that we do give a lot of free time. We give you a free day in London. So if your wife has to go to Harrods and go look at $1,200 pairs of shoes, we'll give you that opportunity. And the hotel in central London, we're really close to the theater district. So if you want to go catch a show, it's just a couple minutes away, and you're right in the heart of central London. And like I said, it's a nice place to live.
Well, for those of us who may have a little tough time getting to Europe anytime soon, tell us about the museum itself in Georgia.
Oh, certainly. Well, the museum has been open since 1996, and thanks for asking about that, Dave. The museum is called the National Museum of the Mighty Eight Air Force. It's actually located in Pooler, Georgia. It's open 6 out of 7 days of the week and so forth. And we have a beautiful, beautiful museum that tells the story of the buildup of World War II. And then it takes you through a thing called the mission experience, where you actually kind of go in, and it's kind of I don't want to relate it to like a Disneyland, type of a show or something along that line, but
an interactive experience.
Exactly. And then you walk out into the combat gallery, and that is where the city of Savannah is, and that is our B-17. It is probably in the world, I would have to say, as a non-flyable example of a B-17, it certainly it's probably close to the most complete aircraft, not only internally but externally. All the turrets work, ball turret, top turret, the chin turret, all of them operate, and it's a remarkable aircraft that you can get right up very, very close to. And for anybody that wants to go on a tour or visit the museum, you can reach out to me, and I know some folks, and I recently folks that you've had on the show, like Bob Bear and Harvey Lowe. They were down in Savannah, and I got a chance to give them make arrangements to make a VIP tour, and both of them got a chance to get inside the fort, which was really nice.
So the museum is the museum itself expanding?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, we just went on a major capital campaign project, and we're actually putting on a very, very large extension and kind of doing a complete facelift of the museum, which will take actually a couple years to do. I've seen all the architectural plans and the drawings and what they're going to do, and the museum is good right now, but it's going to be so much better in the next couple years. So yeah, we're really excited about that.
Well, looking forward to it. Maybe I can convince the wife to make a vacation trip to Savannah.
Savannah's a beautiful city.
And we've never been, and as long as I don't tell her we're going there to see a museum. Oh, honey, while we're down here, why don't
you need to do it like your Niagara Falls trip, Dave, where you didn't even go to the falls. You went to Buffalo.
Exactly. I went to the Buffalo Naval History Museum while she went to the falls.
That's awesome.
Mark, let's bring this home now, and all this aviation history, your new career track as the Director of Educational Travel with the National Museum of the Mighty Eighth. How does all this job and your interests in World War II aviation influence your modeling topics?
Oh yeah, what's a great question. I think I could answer it in this regard, Mike. I think anybody that builds, especially military or historic things, or shall we say real life things, we all strive to take something and create a 3D miniature of an aircraft in my particular interest and so forth. All of us, I think, want to obviously strive for accuracy and to achieve a real life, miniature reproduction of something that was real, a real aircraft. In my regard, I guess I purchased many, as an example, the new Edward P-51s.
I was going to mention that.
I think I'm pretty much to the point where I have just as many P-51s as Doolittle had in 1944. It's a remarkable kit, and I have a short list of aircraft that I want to build. Not only are they beautiful airplanes, but let's go back to Don Blakesley. That's the first one I'm going to do is WDC P-51 D5 that Colonel Don flew, and just in tribute to my friend. And I guess, the other thing is when you can go and you can literally, as like Colonel Blakesley, on our visit to Debden, I will take our tour participants to the exact spot where his hard stand was, and you can stand there. Or I'll take you to the hard stand where the Memphis Belle was parked, or this and that. And when you actually stand there at that place where that airplane was and where that pilot flew, it's a whole different experience in terms of history. But then when you sit down at the model bench and you sit back and you say, I'm going to build a P-51 of Colonel Don Blakesley, and not only was he a great friend of mine personally, but just to stand at that very place where that aircraft was at, that's to me it makes the build, it just means so much more, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it gives you an extra connection.
Oh, completely. Yeah, completely. And when that model's done and you put it on your shelf or bring it to your local club or what may have you, maybe people won't totally understand, what it was. But, to say that I stood at that very place where this airplane, was parked, or where it was serviced and things along that line, or we take our motor coach, and our bus driver kind of knows the deal when we're driving. When we're at Debden and we go down the main east-west runway, he tries to get the bus up to about maybe 80 or 85 miles an hour. We try and get it off the ground, but you're rolling down this runway where, the 4th Fighter Group flew and the Eagle Squadrons. And before that, it was a Principal Base and 12 Group in the Battle of Britain. And it's just like, this is unreal. And you get that sensation. And like I said, when you bring that back to the model table, it just makes the whole experience so much more, interesting. And to me, it just makes the hobby, that much more enjoyable.
I can relate completely.
Well, Mark, we want to thank you for agreeing to come on the show and talk to us about the tours and your historical endeavors. It's all been great. It's been great getting to know you.
Thanks,
and Steve
guys.
Over the last couple of years.
Well,
Yes.
that has been not only, like I said earlier in the program at the beginning, like I said, you guys just kill it every 2 weeks, and I look forward to it. But I never, ever in a million years thought that an email to you guys about my best friend, Steve Husted, and then where it would turn out to be that I've really gained 2 really good friends out of it. So that's what this hobby does, doesn't it?
Yes,
right.
It does. Absolutely. That is what this podcast has done for Mike and I. Do me a favor. When you have tours upcoming, please post those on the dojo. Let's let the listeners have the opportunity. I'm sure that most of our listeners, this is their first time hearing about any of this. If they would like the opportunity to actually experience it, please post the information on the dojo about upcoming tours so that people, if they're interested, can go ahead and contact you, contact the museum, and arrange to get on the tour.
I think that's a terrific idea, Dave, and I certainly will. Thanks for suggesting it. And and if anybody is interested in participating in one of these things, maybe to close, I guess it's something that I think we all know in the back of our mind, and it's not to get all philosophical or sappy or what may have you, but it's really true. We only have so much time on this earth, and the time that we have is finite. And all of us have the bucket list and the list of, boy, one of these days I'd really like to do this. And it's up to us as human beings to eliminate as many of those things as we can before the end. And as I say, there's no ATMs in heaven. And
Yep.
you know what? Enjoy life and experience something. And most of our tour participants, they come back, and it really is, especially for people that had relatives in the Eighth Air Force. It's really a life-changing experience. And if anybody wants any further information on the educational travel page, there's my contact information, my email, and my telephone number. And either call me or email me anytime, and I'd be happy to provide any information that I can for you.
And we can, Mike and I can both testify that Mark is a boon traveling companion.
That's right.
Yes.
We have
look forward to the next time we're on the same trip.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Amen to that. Sooner than later, as far as I'm concerned.
Amen.
That's it.
All
well,
right,
guys, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. And we look forward to the next time we see you.
Absolutely. All right. You guys take care.
Take it easy.
All right. Thank you.
Man, that sounds like so much fun.
Oh, it does. If I can't get to Europe, and right now that clearly it's going to be a tough haul for me. I at least want to go down to the museum of the Mighty Eight down in Georgia. That just sounds like so much fun, and can't wait to do that. And Mark, always love talking with Mark. He's just such a fun person. He has such a bright outlook on life.
Well, and he's certainly enthusiastic about the Eighth Air Force.
Yes, he is.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Get building those P-51s, Mark.
And the B-17s.
Yes.
Bases by Bill is back with quality display bases that enhance any model. From U.S. and Japanese wooden carrier decks to custom-sized cherry hardwood bases, Bases by Bill display bases are available for any type of model and for any size. Oh, and have you heard? Bases by Bill is now a U.S. reseller for one-man army high-definition paint masks. These masks bring amazing detail to your model, even maintenance stencils. They have to be seen to be believed. And all one-man army products include free shipping. Check basesbybill.com to see the products. Bases by Bill for all your model display needs.
Well, I got a box from Bases by Bill. It's got the fruits of our experimentation in it.
Oh, great. Great. I can't wait. You'll have to, when we get done with this, you'll have to take a couple of photographs and send them to me.
Yeah, so folks will get enlightened about that a little later down the road. We're not quite there yet on either of the projects that are represented in that package. But Christian, thanks for sending that out, and Bill and company, thanks for working on it for us. We appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Dave, it's the Bench Top halftime reports, and I hope you've got something to report, man.
I do. You
can't go 0 for 2 on the Moosaroo.
No, I can't post pictures of it because it's top secret, but I am making progress on the Moosaroo. The model by Sunday night should be in its final paint. Then then it's weathering, and then I've got to knock out that base real quick because the diorama or vignette component is the one I don't want to. It's going to be very simple, so I think I can knock it out pretty quick. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's a fun kit. I appreciate the guys in Hamilton doing this, and I'm not going to go 0 for 2, I promise.
Anything else?
In the hobby room, I have been moving. I put up shelving, as I mentioned last time. I've been moving kits and stuff like that. And then I've been moving out some of my library into my pool room. By pool room, I mean table pool, not outside.
The billiard room.
Yeah, the billiard room. Thank you. And I found the only problem with moving books is you look at them and it's like, oh, I didn't remember I had that. Or, ooh, that's a cool. And next thing you know, you're standing there. Instead of moving books, you're standing there leafing through something. And
yes,
that's
guilty.
Yeah, not good. That's not good. So it slows me down. It robs me of hobby time. So I got to get better about that. But I am making some progress. How about you?
KV-85 is moving along.
Yes, it is.
It's about to pick up pace a little bit. The hurdle of the last few days has been the kind of the last of the primary hull welds on it, which I've done in epoxy putty.
Right.
And there were six in total.
Yep.
And I tell you, I can say we talked about this in a recent past episode. I don't know if it was the last one or not, but it was certainly recent couple. Was there anything from the E16 project that was actually going to carry over into armor? And yes, I can say something has. I got to point where I was handling that E16 float plane pretty gingerly.
Mm-hmm.
And then if there was work I'd just done and I knew I was at risk of fouling that by working on some other area of the plane before that was set up or cooked off or whatever, I would just not do it. I would wait. And I saw with these welds that was going to happen. If I just handled this thing, I was going to keep getting my fingers in the ones I'd already done because they were exposed. And so it took me 3 sessions to march through this thing.
Yeah.
I'd do these 2, then wait, then do these 2 and wait, and then do the last 2 and wait. And they're all done. So I'm moving on to the fenders next.
Well, or let me ask you,
sure.
are you like Uncle Night Shift and doing weld seams is now your favorite part of building a model tank?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say 4 of the 6 weren't bad.
Yeah.
No, there was 8 actually. There's 2 near the nose, 2 in the middle, and 2 on the rear. 4 in the middle and 2 on the rear. So the 4 in the middle around those turret bulges gave me a lot of trouble. That was not my favorite. I was glad when those were done. And it was just a matter of you didn't have a corner to pack the putty into because that bulge is round. So you had a round surface coming down and stubbing into a flat surface. So that angle was really shallow down where the weld seam was. So I did his trick though. I went back and I ended up scribing a groove to pack the putty into so I get a little more tooth for it to hold on to. It just kept going away on me.
Yeah.
But I got there in the end, and I think they look pretty good.
Good.
And the fenders are proving problematic.
What's exactly wrong with them?
They're fine. They're nice and thin for injection molded tank fenders. So there's really no need to replace them. I've thinned the fronts and rear exposed ends a little bit. But they've got a detail that kind of friction fits up into the underside of those turret blisters on the hull sides.
Yeah.
And when you get those in there, it forces a twist into the fenders. And I'm not sure where it's binding up. So I got to figure out what's causing that to do that. And it's just going to be a lot of
fit sand.
Oh, there it is. Now glue it on. So
yeah,
that's going to be, hopefully this weekend I'll have those on. One of them's not bad. The other one's kind of terrible. So I'm a little worried about it. I think I'll get it, but not fun.
Yeah. Well, that can actually be a lot of modeling zen when you're working on something like that. You sand a little off, you test fit, you go, okay. And then you take it off and you sand a little bit, and you can kind of get in a groove doing that. And I'll be honest with you, in some respects, I find that very relaxing as long as you can get it eventually to actually fit.
Well, once you get the Moosaroo thing done, you got to tear into those.
The SAM has to finish up, and then I've got to tear into those F8Fs, which shouldn't be bad. Those are simple. Those are the Hobby Boss reduced parts kits, so they should not be very hard. And these things are going to be basically markings mules anyway. So I'm not. There's going to be no super detailing or anything like that.
I had an idea.
Oh Lord!
On your Moosaroo obligations years, you also have this September's collection or group build for the nationals.
Yes.
You keep beating your head against.
Yeah.
I propose for 2026.
Uh-huh.
That the September's group build for the Nationals be
Whatever the Moosaroo is?
a community within a community. And it's just stuff you guys have been building for the prior year, and don't make it something different.
Something different. Well, that would be nice. I'll talk to the Dr. Gelbacher, who's in charge of those things, and see if for that year we can fit in something that I've already got something built that fits in the collection. In fact, the one coming up, I've already got one item that fits in the collection.
I mean, because these things are going to burn up your
I know
spring and summer.
I know. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing.
Then you get the dark time. You got like 3 months to build something you want to build.
Right. I've got to build faster. I have to build faster. There is no question.
Just trying to help you out, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, that's all I've got.
Plastic Model Mojo is brought to you by Squadron. Head on over to squadron.com for the latest in kits and accessories, all at a great price and with great service. Are you a modeler on the go? Check out the Squadron mobile app for your Apple or Android device for easy shopping from just about anywhere. Squadron, adding to the stash since 1968.
Mike, new stuff is coming out at a rapid pace. In fact, I'm finding it hard to keep up with it all. So do you have some faves and yawns of what's coming out?
I don't know if that's universal across all scales and genres, but I got a few things.
All right.
Honestly, they're faves, but there's like this overarching theme that kind of bums me out a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, 3D print seems to be propagating faster than maybe I would care for. I'm kind of developing a love-hate with it.
Yeah.
And, I've got 3 faves here tonight, and 2 of them are 3D print things.
Yeah.
But they're cool.
Yeah.
B&L Models, a company out of Vietnam, has got a Type 65 twin anti-aircraft gun.
Okay. I know
Vietnam War era.
Yep.
Gun. They've got the ground version. They've also got that 1 or 2 off they built on T-34 chassis.
Right.
A conversion for that. So interesting subjects. I don't know they're my cup of tea, so I don't have to worry about too much 3D print encroaching on my modeling enjoyment, but look pretty cool.
Yeah.
What's your first one?
My first one is a fave. It's our friends ClearProp out of the Ukraine. They have announced a new tool, MiG-19. And for anybody who is a fan of Russian/Soviet aircraft, particularly from 1945 to the fall of the Soviet Union, the MiG-19 was a big hole. It was a major aircraft.
Really?
The equivalent of our F-100 Super Sabre, about the same time period, etc. And there have been a couple of kits over the years, but no good kits. And given ClearProp's talents and the kits they currently produce, I have zero doubt that this is going to be a fantastic kit. And it like I said, it's going to fill a big hole. And it looks like they're doing a couple of different versions. The classic day fighter version. They're going to do the night fighter version. I'm happy to see it.
It's right up your alley, man.
Yep, it is. Go ahead.
SS Models.
Okay. Yeah, they're releasing everything and its brother.
And it started out not so great, but some of the stuff I've been seeing online have gotten some nice stuff. I know Ian up in Canada bought a couple, and he's had fun with them.
Yeah.
But this is one that's a 3D print. It's all 3D print, but this one's a 3D print. And it's one where the overall quality would really make it or break it. It's the aft deck, catapult, and gantry for the Japanese ship Fuso.
Oh, yes, I saw that.
In 1/72 scale.
Yep. You got to order that.
Man, that's a lot of coin to throw down on something that might show up and be just a screaming turd, man.
Yeah. Not just a turd, a screaming turd.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, well, hopefully, okay, if there's some listener out there who has seen this thing in the flesh, tell us.
Or any of the other catapults. They've got 2 or 3 others.
Yes, please tell us. In fact, it's even better if you can send a picture or 2 of the actual kit, because if it's halfway decent, Mike is going to go sell his blood or do something like that to raise the money to buy probably all of these. So please, any listener out there, let us know.
I mean, I've been at this long enough to have cut my teeth on some really crappy resin disappointments. And so
you don't want to spend money on bad models.
I'm easy to have pause on stuff like this.
Exactly.
Well, you got another one, my friend?
Yes, I do. And you and I are both going to like this. There's a company called Yahoo Models.
Yeah.
YAHU. And they make instrument panels that are absolutely gorgeous. Pre-done, pre-colored dial faces and everything. Complete instrument panels that you can just drop into a kit. And they are fantastic. They are unbelievably inexpensive. In fact, to the point where whenever I place an order with like Hannets and I want to fill out an order, I'll just buy a bunch of those things because they're ridiculously cheap. They don't add to the postage, etc. But they have announced a instrument panel and interior for the IAR 80/81.
Oh, now I got to get one.
Yes, that's my point. When I find one, I'll be buying 2. Actually, I'll probably be buying 3 or 4 because there are more IAR 80 kits coming.
That kit might have a nice one already in it.
Oh, I suspect it does, but these things are just they're photorealistic. I mean, they are truly fantastic. So if I'm building any kit and Yahoo makes a panel for it, I will use it just simply because it saves you time and effort.
Well, cool.
You got another one?
I do. I was talking about this one earlier, man, to you.
Okay.
While we were supposed to be at work.
Mike?
Mini Arts added the final version of the Stug-Off G from the Alcat factory in their 72nd scale Stug line, and I'm probably going to get one of these.
The pig snout.
Yeah, but it's also got the remote MG on top and the close defense weapon. It's like the Sturmgeschütz reached its pinnacle at the end of the war. While they were starting to shortcut some of their other mainstays in their armored construction. And it's my favorite long barrel version of the Sturmgeschütz. And I don't know, the images on the modeling news look pretty good. I think those kits are pretty nice. And it's a little bitty thing, but I don't know. Warming up to that scale in some of the armor subjects a little bit, and I think I'm going to get this one.
Well, good. I've got one last, which is a yawn, and it's not one that I've seen. It's one I've been told about. Our friend of the show, Jim Bates, tells me that he has seen an actual kit of this, and I forget who the manufacturer is, but it is a 48 scale vacuform and 3D print Russian Tu-95 Bear.
What scale?
48.
That's got some long droopy wings on it.
Yeah, that's just, I mean, a Tu-95 in 72nd scale is a big airplane, every bit as big as a B-52. I just cannot imagine doing a vacuform and 3D print 48 scale Tu-95.
It's the only way you're going to get it.
Yeah, that is the only way you're going to get it. But for me, and I'm sure there are 48 scale guys out there who are probably like, yay. And that's good. I'm glad for you, but that's going to be a yawn for me.
Well, that's all I got. I don't have any yawns. I could, but I've beat the drums that they would fall under to death. Right. So we're not going to do that.
All right. I almost feel silly asking, but how was your Pilsner Urquell?
It's good.
Yeah, of course it is.
It's a mass market Czech beer. I really would like to know what they think about this beer in the Czech Republic.
Yes, if we got a listener in the Czech Republic, tell us, what do you all think of Pilsner Urquell? Because we really love it over here in the States.
I think it's good. I always feel a little slighted with the 330 milliliter bottles, which works out to about 11.2 ounces versus 12. So,
well, that's why you have two of them.
Well, you're losing a couple of swigs per bottle.
Yeah, I know.
That's one way to get a light beer, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Well, same to you, man. I'm sure you're enjoying the pear cider. Having flashback memories to the IPMS Nationals in Oklahoma City.
Yes, I am. It's good. In fact, that's one of the things that's pretty unusual is when I first experienced this at the 2003 Oklahoma City Nationals, it was on tap. And I can say out of a can, it is every bit as good as on tap. There's no real noticeable degradation. It's a fantastic light drink. And, it's only basically 5% alcohol by volume. And so it's very drinkable, very light. Nothing bad to say about it. It's one of my two go-to refreshments. We now truly are at the end of the episode. Do you have any shout out? I've just got one, so you go first.
I've got two, so if you got more than one, we can alternate. I'll go first, and you can do yours, and I'll finish up. One last time, the Hamilton crew, for being such pros when we had them on for the show Spotlight, they were really well prepared. And, it's not their first rodeo, obviously, with Heritage Con. It's not their first rodeo with coming on and pitching the show with us. It's at least their third time, maybe their fourth. And they just showed up ready to go and had all their information. And it was a really smooth conversation and easy edit. And I really appreciate that because the show Spotlights, we like doing them. So don't think this is a complaint, folks, but it's an interesting one for us to do because we never know what we're going to get coming from the other side.
Right.
And sometimes it's been a challenge. We've always managed to get through it. You just never know. Are they going to be prepared? Are they going to have any kind of good equipment or not? Or you just don't know. How good is their internet connection going to be?
Right. Or are they going to be nervous? I mean, the guys at Hamilton, because they've done this so many times now, really kind of have it down. They come across very professionally. And that's just something that's really comes with doing it multiple years, multiple places, etc.
So that was an easy one.
Yes.
And yours?
Well, I've got to shout out that Arma Hobby has a blog, and they had a recent post by a female aviation historian by the name of Dr. Victoria Taylor, who is semi-well-known on Twitter/X under the handle Spitfire Philly. She is a recent doctoral graduate in, was it Hull? I cannot remember the name of the school in England that she got her doctorate from. But she's a young, attractive World War II aviation historian. She's been on a number of TV shows, YouTube series. She's done some excellent written work. And she apparently, and I'd love to know how this collaboration came about, Arma has a really nice blog where they feature things that are tied to obviously to the models that they do. And there is an article that Dr. Taylor recently posted on their blog about a special set of markings for some hurricanes, one of which Arma boxes with those decals. And these were presentation aircraft paid for by a Scottish lady. And by lady, I mean the title lady, who had 3 sons who had all died in air crashes, the last of the 3 actually in World War II combat. And she donated at first a short Sterling bomber, and then she donated 4 Hurricane fighters, paid for them out of her personal fortune, and they were dedicated to her 3 sons, and the 4th one to their Soviet allies. This is back when the Soviets and Britain were fighting together against Hitler. And at least one of those aircraft, Arma, in their Hurricane 2B kit, actually has that set of markings. And so she did a really great article that not only discussed the markings, but also discussed the history behind it and who this person was. And you really got a sense of what this poor woman experienced losing all 3 of her sons. It was a really great article. So congratulations to Dr. Taylor. Congratulations to Arma. That was a very good tie together, and hopefully they'll do more in the future. So you got one more?
I do. We'd be remiss not to shout out our contributors to Plastic Model Mojo.
I was going to say.
Folks like Lynn Young, Don Gilman, and Uni Korte from Finland. So we got another one from Finland.
All right. You love the Finns.
Folks, we really appreciate this. It's really flattering to know that you're getting enough out of this podcast and our adjacent content over on Facebook to want to help us out along the road. So much appreciated. If you'd like to be like these fine folks, you can go to www.plasticmodelmojo.com, and there's a support tab at the end of the menu bar or in the show notes of this episode to get to all the avenues that you can support the show if you so desire. We don't want to charge anybody for anything, but we appreciate the support we're getting anyway. It's very, very flattering. So thank you very much.
Amen. Mike, that brings us to the end. I need to get off of here and get packed up and ready to go to Columbus. So, as we say,
so many kits, Dave.
So little time, Mike.
Well, you have fun in Columbus, buddy.
All right.